I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness, a first responder mental health podcast hosted by me, Erin Jane, where we have conversations about what it's like to perform a first responder role and the mental health challenges that can accompany it. Welcome to I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness, a mental health first responder podcast hosted by me, Erin Jane. This is the first episode, so welcome. I just want to take this opportunity to introduce myself. Obviously, as you can probably tell from the accent, I am Australian. And it probably goes without saying that I say fuck a lot. So if you have delicate ears, I just wanted to give you the heads up. If you are a first responder, then you should probably feel right at home. So I just wanted to give you a little bit about my background. So I was a police officer and a detective in Australia before meeting and marrying my husband, who is an American firefighter, and moving over here. So I currently live in Boston, originally from Melbourne. And when I came to Boston, I also previously worked as a crisis counsellor at a suicide prevention organisation. So in the role that I do now, I am a Master Certified Life Coach specialising in first responders, emergency services members, their partners, spouses and loved ones. So I feel that all of my collective experience, relationships, friendships in that realm have prepared me to be in this space and to be able to give back to the first responder community in that way. It's a community that I obviously care a great deal about. And even though I'm not one anymore, it's still my everyday life. You know, I'm married to one. So many of my friends and family are still first responders. And that, you know, encompasses roles of police officers, detectives, firefighters, dispatchers, nurses, EMTs, you know, you name it. So having it be still such a massive part of my life, it's why I, you know, want to dedicate myself in this way. So together with my coaching at the moment, I'm also studying psychology and counselling to become a therapist dedicated to treating first responders. So very somewhat similar to, you know, what I do now, just in a more varied role. And the end goal will be to make it so that I can provide both services, so coaching and counselling as a culturally competent and experienced practitioner. And basically just, helping people in as many ways that I can, in the capacity that I can. On a personal note, I am a mum to 2 little boys. Sweet, funny, sometimes crazy little boys. So like many of you, I know that juggle, you know, that what it's like to juggle the chaos of, you know, in your family of having a first responder schedule, running a business, I've got my coaching clients, raising little kids and just trying to get through all of the things that need doing. And I guess one of the points of this podcast is really to just be raw and authentic in that way. Just, you know, as you probably find with most Australians, there's generally a pretty strict no bullshit policy when it comes to me, because life is busy and it's messy, and at times, especially when you throw in, you know, sort of like the challenges that go along with first responder schedules, extended absences, exposure to trauma, stress, sleep deprivation, and then also coming at it from the perspective of being a spouse. So your partner being gone a lot and you shouldering the load of, you know, a lot of the burden of, you know, the parenting responsibilities, the household responsibilities, attending special occasions alone, juggling your own wants, needs and commitments and trying to facilitate that around their schedule and, having it impact your life a lot. Not to mention like unexpected OT and all that kind of thing. So this podcast isn't just for first responders, even though it is a first responder mental health podcast. It's also for the spouses too, because the conversations that I want to be having on here, I want them to reflect both sides of the coin, encompass both viewpoints, both perspectives. Because ultimately that's my experience too, like I know what it's like to be the first responder going to work and having to, set aside any and all of like the bullshit from your home life and just really, focus on what you're dealing with at work at that time. And just having that, level of like disassociation, because sometimes, you actually really need to focus on what you're doing. But I also know what it's like to be that, the spouse left at home, often for extended periods. And, sometimes, in the throes of it with young kids, a messy house and just, no help or support for a while, and makes you want to just, tear your fucking hair out. So it's all of those nuances of a relationship in that environment, that has its own, unique set of challenges. And that's, part of the thing that I want to be here to talk about. So I want to go back to the start and just explain a little bit more in depth about my experience, so you get an idea of who I am, what I'm about, and where I'm coming from in regards to this. So I was a police officer back home in Australia for like 8.5, 9 years, I think. So I obviously started out in uniform. That encompassed like working on the street. So we call it the van, the divisional van. Worked in the watch house and the police station. I worked at a police station that had cells. So I worked with crooks in there. So primarily out on the road, that instantaneous you call for help, I'd be rocking up. So I did that for a few years, as well as I did some plain clothes secondment work, worked on a burg crew and a detective office for a few months, did a 12-month stint at what was called like a divisional tasking unit, where you handled a few sort of more longer in-depth investigations, and dealt with like, sort of services for the first time. So maybe surveillance unit, stuff like that. So yeah, and eventually that led to, my career trajectory was that I wanted to get into the detective side, so criminal investigations. I worked my way in that career direction, and that ended me up working in the crime department, where I got my position as a detective. So I did about 6 months in at the drug task force, and then that eventually led to the position that I ended up with at the armed crime squad. So that encompassed sort of like the high level of investigations, obviously robberies. We used to also investigate kidnappings, non-fatal shootings, and aggravated burglaries of a certain nature and description. So that was, sort of really one of the highlights for me. It was where I'd always wanted to end up, and I got my dream job, my dream position as my first detective role. So I was incredibly fortunate in that respect, and I really loved working there, and I loved the work. It was very dynamic in nature. Obviously, you could just walk in the morning and there'd be a red sign on the door, and And that meant that there was a kidnapping in progress, and we had to go to the command center of where they were run from. And it could be awesome or, fuck, I had so much to do today, and that's all just gone out the window. But I think with any environment like that, as much as the work is amazing, I think it also comes down to the people that you work with and the friends that you make along the way. So I was, so fortunate that through my whole career, I met so many wonderful people, that many are still, some of my best friends to this day. My absolute best friend in the whole wide world, I met her day one at the police academy, and we have been joined at the hip ever since. So a lot of my friends back home in Australia are still in first responder roles. And I think with the job in, whether it's law enforcement or any other first responder realm, I think it is the people that really make it. They can make it awesome, or it can make it really shit. I was fortunate that most of the time was great, and met some wonderful people along the way. And if I'm honest, I'd probably still be working with the police force if I hadn't met my husband. I'd never sort of had any intentions to leave. It was the job I thought that I would always do. So yeah, probably just a very quick explanation. I was traveling through Europe and met my husband overseas. He was traveling there for the band Iron Maiden, to go see them. I was just traveling for the sake of traveling and seeing the world, and we ended up meeting over there. So yeah, we met and married in 9 months, which sounds a little crazy, I know, but 10 years later, it's worked out well. It was decided that I would choose to move over here. So I left the police force back home, with a heavy heart in some respects, but also happy that I had accomplished something that I'd always set out to. So I was comfortable leaving in that respect and wanting to start, the next chapter of my life. And so when I moved to Boston, I was looking for something to do, not necessarily in the first responder realm, because I don't know if I was 100% interested in just starting from square one again after having been in for so long, and knowing that we wanted to have kids at some point. So I found at first a volunteer opportunity. There's like I mentioned previously, it's a suicide prevention and crisis counselling organisation in Boston called Samaritans. So I applied and got a volunteer position there. So I worked there for a couple of years. So literally answering the phone to people calling up in crisis, or being a bit lonely and needing someone to talk to. And I found that incredibly rewarding. And again, I was fortunate enough they offered me a paid position to be a supervisor there. So just, monitoring other volunteers taking calls and or on the text chat line, and then also interviewing other prospective volunteers. And yeah, that was a very, rewarding experience for me personally. It was something that I sort of had always wanted to do something in that realm. I wanted to give back, and sort of help that aspect of the community struggling with, depression and suicidal ideation in that way. Obviously dealt with that a lot as a police officer. And it's also something that, I guess entered my world from a really young age. That's how my father passed away when I was a little kid. So suicide had, sort of just been a part of my life for a really long time. And I guess it was one of those things that I felt like I needed to do, that, it makes me think that if there was the kind of help around back then like there is now, maybe my dad would have gotten, the help that he actually really needed, and been in a position to make a different choice. But yeah, so I worked there for a couple of years, and then I had obviously a couple of kids with my hubby, and so just took a step back to focus on family and all that kind of thing. But after a couple of years, I really found myself, I mean, obviously just, wanting to do something else. Like, I love being a mum, but it's not, I wanted something just for myself, something outside of the family. And I just sort of realized that I really missed helping people. It was something, that's thread its way through my life, that, all the jobs that I've done. So I sort of, started having a think about things that I wanted to do, and I think I missed, being a part of that first responder community too. Excuse me while I have some of my tea. I sort of had been talking to a therapist friend of mine, and she had suggested, knowing that I maybe want to go down the counselling therapy route at some point, but obviously that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of study. And so she suggested life coaching, and I sort of started looking into it and made some inquiries and did a bit of research. So I ended up getting my life coaching qualifications. And so I've been doing that for about 2 years now. And so I think one of like the most common questions that I get is, what's the difference between life coaching and therapy? And obviously there is a lot of overlap. Obviously, a therapist goes to school for like a hell of a lot longer, and they have a degree. And I guess the main thing when it comes to therapy is you see a therapist if you are having, or struggling with like a mental health condition, because they can make an assessment, they can diagnose you, they can, treat, obviously offer treatment and try to help like reduce your symptoms, and then obviously help facilitate, you need, if you need some kind of medication, going to see either your doctor or a psychiatrist or something in that respect. So obviously a life coach is not that. But there is a lot of overlap in terms of like the way that I like to sort of describe coaching is that when you engage with me, it's a partnership. So it's where we foster a relationship and you focus on personal growth, problem solving, really evolving yourself into a person that you want to be, setting goals and, attaining those goals. And then I'm the person that, supports you through that process and keeps you accountable. And ultimately I'm someone there for you to talk to and basically kind of like nut your problems out with. So obviously I have like some qualifications and some training. It's not to, a therapist level by any means. But it's having now started my my psychology and counselling route. What I'm loving is that it's actually incredibly similar to anyone who has been through therapy. It's really similar to like one of the humanistic approaches, which is like the person-centered therapy. So in coaching, we focus on the present and look towards the future. We don't really sort of like delve into the past, unless it's something really relevant to what you're, wanting to talk to me about. I sit there and listen, and I don't give you advice. I don't tell you what to do. And there's the three key attributes that person-centered therapy approach is all about, which is what is it? It's unconditional positive regard, projecting empathy and genuineness, and that couldn't be more appropriate and relevant to how I coach people. I'm all about just offering you support in a really authentic way, and using my experience to be able to foster that relationship, and to be in a position to help you. And I think it's and it can be, we can talk about life, we can talk about relationships, trying to find a work-life balance, you're juggling or trying to figure out how to increase your self-worth, or find ways to have compassion for yourself. Like it's all sort of things that I feel really passionately about, and I think it's being in a position to help people with things like that is a real privilege. And I think the thing I love the most about it is that it's client-led. So you come and see me, and you dictate what it is that we talk about. And I think that my personal belief is that I think everyone has the answers to their own questions and problems and issues. I think a lot of the time they actually have it inside them already. They deep down know what it is that they need to do. And they either just don't have anyone asking them the right questions, or they don't have anyone giving them their undivided attention and actually listening appropriately. And especially when it comes to the first responder population, anyone listening who is a first responder, like, you guys like to be large and in charge, so relinquishing, an element of control is not something that, you're always necessarily comfortable with, and then reaching out for help, can make you feel incredibly vulnerable. So being in a position where you get to come in and talk to someone, but you're still in charge, I think that is, very appropriate for this population, because it helps you maintain an element of control, which, I think is often something that's important to you. But yeah, so when it boils down to it, the main difference is that, if you think that you have a mental health condition, go see a therapist. You can tell me you're feeling down and depressed, or you can tell me that you're feeling anxious, but I can't treat you for that. That is definitely above my pay grade. Won't be forever, and I'll be happy to let you know when that time comes. But for right now, there's a point of when you actually need to go see a clinician. So, to come and see me, maybe you're just having a hard time, you've got some either work or relationship problems, and you need to talk to someone. But, the whole reason I'm here is giving you someone to be able to talk to who gets it, who understands, understands the culture, understands what it's like to, be that person performing a first responder role. That's when you come talk to me. So the aspect that makes me unique as a coach is obviously my first responder background. And I've also completed the CISM training, which is the critical incident stress management. So when you come and talk to me, you're in a position to speak to someone who's culturally informed and experienced and competent. Coaching, like therapy, is a confidential setting. And so anything that you need to get off your chest, even if it's to come and talk to me about a job and have like a bit of a debrief in regards to it. Just be like, that was a tough one. Do you mind if I just talk to you and get it out? Because I don't want to talk to the blokes at work about it, but I need to talk to someone. I need to offload it, and I don't want to talk to my wife, or I don't want to talk to my husband, spouse, partner, whoever. That's what I'm here for. So when it boils down to it, I think that there's a gap that exists between what your basic station level peer support can provide for you and where you're at a point of needing to go and see a clinician. Peer support station level, fantastic, absolutely brilliant. I know some of the guys who do it, at my husband's work, and there is 100% a role for it. But there's a really broad space in between that and going to see therapy or going to see a therapist, that I think a lot of first responders can just get fucking lost in. Like sometimes, they've probably been to like the same job as the people at their station. If it's kind of affected them a little bit and doesn't really appear to have affected anyone else as much or at all, I think that, sometimes they feel a bit too embarrassed to go and talk to them, or, uncomfortable speaking to someone in that peer support environment. And then, on the flip side of it, there has just been years and years of cultural stigma attached to getting any kind of mental health assistance in the first responder realm. So many people are reluctant to go and see a therapist at times, thinking that they're okay and they can just handle it. So as a coach, with my policing experience, my suicide prevention and crisis counselling background, my CISM training, my life coaching qualifications, I feel like my role is to bridge the gap between peer support and clinical services, and to give you a place to go and someone to talk to and to work with, so you don't fall into that gap and get lost. And that's really the whole point of the exercise, just wanting to help people in the best way that I can. And just to give you another option, like, even if coming to see me as a coach is you talking to someone for the first time, having a conversation, talking out a job, talking about maybe shit that, I know I said we don't really delve that much into the past, but, if you've got something from 5, 10, 20 years ago that's fucking bothering you, if I'm the first person that you talk to about it, that is an absolute honor and a privilege. And that's the whole point, of like the name of the podcast. And what I do for my clients, I will hold space for your darkness. I will hold space and I'll sit and listen to whatever it is that you need to tell me. And it's not going to fucking break me. I haven't done what you've done. I haven't seen what you've seen. But I've done my fair share of my own shit. I've seen my fair share of stuff, obviously both in a professional sense and a private, personal capacity. I can freely admit that I have done a lot of personal work myself to make it so I'm good. So there's nothing that you can say that's, going to break me, that I can't handle. And, even if you speak to me and it's not, at that level that we need to bump you up a bit, that's okay. I can be the water that you dip your toe into and you get comfortable, and then I can help you find, the right culturally appropriate clinician for you. And I don't care. I don't care about, I'm not in here to, make $1 million and not give a fuck about my clients. I care more about helping you. And if that boils down to you don't, work with me forever, or we work together one time and then it's like, okay, let's get you like a little bit more assistance. That's good. All I care about is you getting the, the help that you need. So yeah, and obviously as a coach, I exist outside of, any part of your employment, or your EAP system. So it's completely confidential. And if finances are an issue, I'm actually a resource with this absolutely amazing and incredible organization called the Overwatch Collective. So they have their own podcast, which I've been a guest on previously, and they are a non-for-profit. So their whole mission is to fund therapy and coaching services for first responders and military veterans. It's created by two blokes, Greg and Jesse, who are, both either military and for first responder realms too. So yeah, you can always reach out to them if financing is an issue. And their motto is one more is one less, which I love, and it really resonates with me. And the best part is all of their resources. So I'm, one of, their coaches, but all of their coaches and all of their therapists are culturally competent, and informed. So if that's the kind of help that you need, I can help you get in touch with them as well. So two final things before I finish up, because to be honest, I'm sick of the sound of my own voice, and I'm sure that you probably are too. So let's wrap it up. But I guess I wanted to just talk about, which I did just a little bit previously, but the name of the podcast, I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness. It is, like I said, the ethos and the motto of my coaching business. And that's where it comes from, and that's why I've chosen to name my podcast that. My personal belief is that there is a certain darkness that permeates a lot of our experiences as first responders. All the shit that we see, all the things that you have to deal with, that, sometimes a normal member of the public just has no fucking idea it even exists. And I think that, everything we do and every experience we take away, we carry that with us. And if we don't process it and offload it appropriately, it'll sit inside you and it'll poison you. You need to be able to unburden yourself, and you need to be able to do that in a place where there's no fear, no shame, no level of embarrassment at all, and certainly no judgment. And so that's what I'm here for. My promise as a coach to all of my clients is I will hold space for your darkness. And that's what it boils down to. That's what it's really all about. And so lastly, this is just the first episode. I wanted to introduce myself, try not to ramble too much. Not sure I've accomplished that. But moving ahead, the aim is to interview and just have some really lovely in-depth conversations with other, current and former first responders, emergency services members, as well as some spouses, some therapists, and, other mental health advocates. So I will, pop on here alone sometimes to chat about like some coaching stuff and some mental health, related topics. But ultimately it's going to be like a bit of a mixture and a bit of a hodgepodge of a little bit of this, a little bit of some chats with some people, and really just trying to put the message out there that it is 100% the best thing in the world that you can do as a first responder, to be open about your mental health and to talk about things that affect you and bother you. And, at any stage, reach out and talk to someone, whether it's me, whether it's anyone. That's what the message that it is that I want to put out there. So you're also welcome to reach out and ask for certain topics to be discussed. I'm really, really happy for that to happen. I love getting feedback and input from people in, the first responder community. God knows I get plenty of feedback on a daily basis from my firefighter husband. So I'm used to it. So you can be as blunt as you need to. That's fine. So I will pop my email in the show notes. But if you're listening and have a pen, it is my email address is info@erinjanecoaching.com. But I will pop it in the show notes. So you can contact me there. My website is just erinjanecoaching.com. You can, so there's all information about, what I do and coaching services offered and all that kind of thing. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I'm on Threads, I guess, kind of. I'll probably sort out how to post this onto YouTube at some point, and very important in regards to the Overwatch Collective, they have their own first responder app. So if you go to the App Store, it's just type in the Overwatch Collective, and it is an app specially designed for first responders. You can jump on, you create a profile. There's other podcasts listed on there of like a first responder nature. You can interact with other first responders on there. And one of the great things about it is they have this thing called like an incognito mode. So you can sign up and you can interact with people and you can post about things in an anonymous way. So if you're feeling like you just need to reach out to, or just word vomit something out there, but, you're a little bit, maybe a little bit hesitant or, don't really want to share your name, you actually don't have to. And it's very interactive. And also moving forward, they have these things called these audio rooms, which I will be jumping on and almost hosting something similar to this. There's a wonderful therapist called Maggie who I'm going to be jumping on there with soon. She's also a first responder therapist. So almost like a little bit more like an old school radio show. We'll just be able to jump on, have a chat about, any kind of topic. And you can submit questions or jump on and have a chat with us. So that will be happening soon too. All right. I think that might be about it. So as you could tell, I'm very, very new to this. So I want to just say thank you very much for listening and or watching. If I get around to posting this somewhere where you can see, I am going to do my best to try to keep the, clusterfuck level down to a minimum. But, ultimately my aim is just to give you a podcast and a show, dedicated and committed to authenticity, compassion, with some interesting and thought-provoking conversations and basically just to help and serve the first responder community in all the ways that I can. So that is why I'm here. If you were here with me, I am beyond thrilled to have you here with me. And yeah, please get in contact. I would love to hear from you. So yeah, that's probably about it. I've been your host, Erin Jane, with the first real episode of I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness. And yeah, as always, let me listen in a way that you've never been heard. Hope you guys have a good day. Cheers.